self-made to be who he is.
Let's go to Chuck Cecil.
Another one.
The guy's in the College Football Hall of Fame.
Perfect example.
Weighed 150 pounds when he got here.
Right.
Guys like that who, again, have the determination.
Mm-hmm.
They've got to have a level of intelligence because they have to figure things out as they go along.
No question.
And figure out ways to, get on the field, to catch the coach's eye, to do the things that they need to do, and to just kind of outsmart everybody.
Always at the right place at the right time, doing the right things.
Yeah. It's interesting. So I love seeing a story like that. Hopefully he gets the opportunity. There's some people saying that, he may be invited to the Major League camp when they start camp on July 1st, which, the Major League teams are going to be inviting 60 players to that.
Mm-hmm.
If he gets a shot at that, at least he'll get a look, and then his road to the Major Leagues becomes, he gets a jump start on it.
Sure. I thought you were going to say, I hope he's related to me.
Well, that too. I still, I've got mixed feelings about whether or not I want to look back in my DNA and see who's back there. Because I may be looking for Nick Gonzales and then find something else that I'm not really looking forward to. My family and I had a fun discussion about that a couple of days ago, and my kids said, "Yeah, I'd like to know," and I'm like, my wife and I are both, I don't know that we want to know.
Right. Be careful what you wish for.
So no, we're
totally get it.
But again, he's an inspiration.
Yeah,
Nick's an inspiration to, and hopefully there's kids in Tucson who are paying attention to this story. If he makes it to the big leagues, he'll be a story that will get a lot of attention
for a long time.
Hopefully, there's a lot of kids here in Tucson who will see this story and see what the possibilities are, and that you don't have to be the elite talent as long as you work hard. You can get there.
Right. That's the guy jump shooting in the rain. The guy is taking cuts in the rain.
Right.
Catching footballs in the snow.
Working out and doing the workouts, running the stadiums in the middle of June and July. When some of us won't even go outside. Those kinds of things. Yes. So go ahead.
From that to today's reality, because we talk about it every day. It's a sports, but it's part of sports. More and more tests are coming out positive. Right. UConn just eliminated a bunch of sports testing, and it's NBA,
right?
Golf. You talking about golf?
There were a bunch of the a couple of the top players in golf withdrew from the tournament that's in Connecticut today. Brooks Koepka being one of them. Webb Simpson, who won last week. Because people around them have tested positive. So, there was a handful of players that were set to go tomorrow, and they withdrew from the tournament. We saw that Grand Canyon University has quarantined its entire basketball team and their staff because I think 4 players and 2 staff members tested positive. So, again, it's how you deal with these things. Again, I think the reality that we've talked about and that everybody's facing is that as teams go along, there's going to be positive tests among them. It's the protocols that they put in place to deal with that. So in Grand Canyon's case, they've quarantined the entire team and staff in a residence hall, and they're going to be there. They've got to be there, 14 days and be tested until it all clears, and hopefully they're all, clear of the virus, and then they get back to work.
Here we go.
The question is, though, like you said, what happens if that happens,
during the year?
During the season.
Right.
All of a sudden you got to quarantine the entire team.
Right.
How many games do you forfeit? Or what, what is it?
The odds on that happening are better than 50%.
I think we're finding it's probably pretty high, unless things can be put in place to kind of control this stuff going forward.
One day we'll stop talking about this.
We will.
I'm not sure when.
About games. Well, July 24th, there are going to be some baseball supposedly, and I think the NBA is supposed to be going here in a few weeks, so hopefully we'll be able to talk about some games. Right.
Looking forward to talk to Jake Fisher, a good friend, one of the original sports guys, a heck of a player, one of those overachiever guys too.
One of those guys, a local guy, Ironwood Ridge High School. Shout out to the Nighthawks. But Jake was one of those guys that got to look at the U of A. Again, worked hard. He was a starter. Was an all Pac-12 honorable mention guy. And just a fun guy to watch in the Scooby Wright mold.
Right.
And I think they played together 1 year maybe.
Yeah.
But Jake was here the first 2 years of the Rich Rod coaching administration. 2012, 2013, there were some great games
Scrappy
that he was involved in, and so we'll have a chance to talk about some of those games and some of the stuff he's been doing. But Jake's a smart guy. He was a good academic guy and all that kind of stuff, and be interesting to see. I want to hear what he's thinking about the stuff that's going on right now, maybe from a player perspective.
Right. Mm-hmm.
What would he be going through as a player if he was talking about, if he was a guy who was supposed to be coming onto campus amid all of this, and
what the concerns would be.
His experience, because his experience is recent,
very involved
a
too.
few years ago. So.
Very involved with what's going on.
Yeah.
Hey, let's take a quick break here now, and I'm not sure how you're going to live up to yesterday's music selections there, Tom, but I think you got something going.
Hey, this is a good start right here.
Yes,
a little more Stevie.
Let's take a break here on 1030 The Voice.
Trusted local news and talk. 1030 The Voice.
Time to update those old kitchen cabinets? Call the Window Depot today. The Window Depot is not only the #1 warehouse for windows and doors, we now have a great selection of kitchen and bath cabinets at Tucson's best prices. The Window Depot is Tucson's top spot for granite and quartz countertops to finish the new kitchen or the replacement of that old worn-out Formica. So call us today at 290-8545 or 622-6430. The Window Depot, windows, doors, granite, and new kitchens.
There's a place in our house.
For 70 years, Benjamin Supply has been keeping Tucson flowing. Hygiene is our business. We help you achieve extreme clean. Minimize germ spreading with a hands-free sensor faucet. Forget the paper panic with a washlet seat. And speaking of waterworks, a big thanks to plumbers for their essential efforts during this health crisis. Shop our downtown showroom by appointment. Call us at 777-7000 or see all the products online at benjaminsupply.com.
Thanks to Benjamin Plumbing Supply.
This is Bill Buckmaster. The Buckmaster Show features Arizona newsmakers and more than 24 Buckmaster Show contributors. Everything from the arts to faith and spirituality is on the table and open for discussion and your calls. Buckmaster on 1030, Tucson's voice for trusted news talk, and we are always on buckmastershow.com.
Trusted local news and talk. 1030 The Voice.
Hey, welcome back to Eye on the Ball here on 1030 The Voice. I'm your host, Steve Rivera, alongside Jay Gonzales. Now on the phone we have Jake Fisher, former U of A linebacker. Not too long ago. Jake, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you guys?
Fine, thank you. Hey, just real quick, give us an update what you're doing and how you doing?
Oh, we're doing fine. I'm actually up in the Phoenix area now and, doing the same thing as last time I spoke to you guys. I'm an investment advisor representative, and, we help folks with everything that's money pretty much.
So you're actually using your education. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, the education, I got marketing. I'm not a great marketer. That's more my girlfriend's forte, but I'd like to think I'm pretty good at what I do.
Yeah, very good, Jake. So I hate to keep harping on this, but one of the things that Steve and I have been having to talk about for since I got on the show is all this stuff with the COVID. From your experience as an athlete and all the things that you would go through to prepare for a season and stuff like that. Put yourself in the shoes of a football player who would be coming on campus today. What would be on your mind? What would your concerns be? Would you be, optimistic that things are happening? I mean, what would you be thinking about as you were headed towards this season coming up amidst all of this?
Well, I would be super comfortable with the way that, our university is handling everything. I mean, I follow all the U of A stuff on Twitter. I see what they're doing, how serious they're taking it, which they should be. But the fact is, if I was in that position before I went onto campus, what I would have been doing is I would have been researching exactly, what this entails, who it affects. Obviously I want to see what the types of symptoms are. You got to be very careful. You got to, don't just go out and hang out with a bunch of different people in close quarters and things of that nature. But going on to campus, seeing the type of The way that they are treating the players, they're bringing them in, doing testing, kind of keeping them separate of each other, just to make sure for the common good of everybody around. I think they're doing a good job, to be 100% honest with you. So it's a positive thing. I know that. And the outlook going into the season, guys, this is my thing. Without football, the athletic department, any athletic department, they're facing challenges. So I think they're going to find a way to do it. And in order for them to do it, they really have to make sure that the players' health comes first and foremost. So they're going to do whatever they can to make that happen.
I'm glad we have you on because just a conversation like this, we talked about this yesterday with Jay. I think that the players themselves have more power than any other time in sports history, given they can get their images now, get paid for some of that, and now they have a say for the reasons you said. Without them, there's no football season.
Well, exactly, and this is the thing, going back to when I was in college, with the O'Bannon suit, one of the people from ESPN asked me if I really thought that the people went to go see the players play and they weren't just going to see a football team. Well, if you have a bad football team, number one, you can't fill up the stadium, number one. And this is the thing. Now people have, the players started to realize that they are the most important aspect of the football program. If you have great athletes, you're going to attract more people. It's going to bring more money, number one. And number two, they understand kind of the position they're in terms of being a voice of positivity surrounding the football program. So if you have someone like Schooler or one of these guys that leads on either side of the ball, they're coming out and they're leading the way saying, hey, we need to make sure that we take care of the player's safety. We need to make sure it's the same type of role that they would take if, you had kids in the off season coming in and they weren't trying to work out. Well, if your best player is working their tail off, getting in the weight room, putting together stuff for the team, everybody else is going to be more likely to follow. So they understand with the type of power they have comes responsibility. And, just the players in general, every year they're getting a little bit more control. And, some people don't think that's necessarily a good thing. I do. Number one, because they're going to be able to get paid on their likeness and things of that nature now. But I think more importantly, it's going to allow for them to thrive as leaders. And, going forward from there, I think it's going to make the game better.
Jake, let me ask you, because I did a story on this. Now, again, this was 100 years ago. I think, probably even well before you were born. Just talking to a player about just surviving, on campus, being into, I talked to a couple of players from out of town. How are you making it financially? How do you make ends meet? Do you get enough money? What can you do with, are you able to go out and, go to a movie or buy a pizza? And I know you were, you're a local guy, so your parents were probably here and stuff like that, and maybe you got some help and those types of things. But what types of things did you see, that players were going through that make the whole money issue such a big issue? Because I know there's some of them who don't have anything behind them. So whatever they're getting at the university is all they get. What did you see, and how big a deal is this for the players to just get a little more?
Well, the deal is, you have two sides to the argument. I have people that I went to school with that necessarily didn't say that they were struggling financially. And then I have other players that I played with that they were always behind. The fact that I was in Tucson, it was a little bit more of a blessing because the parents were right down the road, and I think that especially helped me, through injuries and rehabs and stuff like that. But more importantly, the financial side. But when it comes down to it, my parents were smack dab in the middle of that classification or that income, that household income that you need in order to get help from the university. And then you also got to remember, when I went into play in 2009, we were still recovering from, a little bit of an economic downturn, the Great Recession and things of that nature. So, we weren't made of money. And so, I couldn't make a car payment. That had to come from my parents. I couldn't go and make any additional money. There were people that, it's like, listen, can I go pick up a side job? No, because if you're not putting everything you can into summer, right, if you're not showing up for, even if they're not mandatory workouts, but you're not showing up, that's going to set an example for the younger players. Or
right, they're mandatory, right?
Right, exactly. And so, when it comes down to it, I think the players being able to make a little bit more money because you also got to remember you're putting a full load of classes and things on top of it, along with not having enough money. So we would only get fed one time a day. They had that crazy rule back in the day where it's like you can have a bagel, no cream cheese, that kind of stuff. It's like, guys, come on. I mean, we're working out so much. We're expending so much energy. We're spending a lot of time in the classroom. We're doing all this stuff. If I need to go make money, you got to give me a way for me to go make additional money, because the amount of money they were paying us at that time wasn't enough.
Let me ask you real quick. This is another discussion we had yesterday. So Jake Fisher is playing linebacker and does a pretty good job, but you have ex-running back and ex-quarterback doing really well. Their likeness is selling and they're getting paid very well. But Jake Fisher is, just kind of muddling along. His likeness is not doing whatever. Do you think that there's going to be some resentment with that?
You know what? This is ultimately what I believe in 100% of the time. I think free market is the way to go in everything. And I'm not trying to bring my political beliefs or into this at all, but a guy like Kadeem Carey, a guy like Austin Hill, a guy like Nick Foles back in the day, or Rob Gronkowski. These guys are literally bringing more money into the program because of their performance on the field. It's increasing ticket sales. You're going and buying a guy's jersey. I mean, imagine Gronkowski, if they would have known how illustrious of a career he would have had in the NFL. You go back, I mean, his jersey would have sold 3 or 4 times more than, a jersey would regularly sell. So they're adding so much value to the program. So it's only right that they get compensated a little bit more. It's where the compensation comes from. If you have a guy like a DeAndre Ayton, right, who everyone knows he's going to be one of the top couple picks in the draft, you only have him here for a year. Well, hey, if a car lot wants me to get on a commercial and pay me a little bit of money, it's my likeness. The NCAA shouldn't dictate me being able to make a little bit of money outside of college. Now, also, I think it would lessen the amount of stuff that happens, from, in terms of basketball, maybe from the runners that go to the AAU programs, pay people a little bit more, et cetera, et cetera. I wouldn't be as willing and available to taking money that way if I was able to go and make a little bit of money outside of school. And that's just to be 100% honest with you. I think if you have a brand, you should be able to make a little bit more money. Now, for the person that isn't playing, doesn't have that big of a reputation, obviously they need to be compensated a little bit more. And the football program usually brings in plenty of money in order to do that. So when it comes down to it, I know coaches get paid a lot of money. Athletic directors get paid a lot of money. There's money available. It's just how are we going to go ahead and budget it to make sure that the players are taken care of? Because that's the product that gets put on the field. The amount of hours that get put in behind the scenes that are not out on the actual field during the game is ridiculous. And you have to put in a lot of time in order to put a good product on the field.
But I guess the question is, will the offensive guard, who nobody even people don't even know his name, is he going to have a problem blocking for the quarterback who's making whatever thousands of dollars because he's a marketable guy and the offensive guard is not? Do you think there's going to be any kind of issues with that amongst the players in the locker room, that kind of thing?
You know what? That's a great question. And honestly, the way that I would view it is if we have, let's just say we have an unbelievable outside linebacker, and let's say that or just an unbelievable inside linebacker per se, and then let's say I'm a nose tackle. I know that if I do my job well enough, I'm going to get compensated down the road. I'm not thinking about, this guy saying, oh, well, he's getting 10 tackles a game, and I'm only getting 2.5 to 3 tackles. He's getting all the press and things of that nature, because if that inside linebacker is worth a damn at all, he's going to give me some credit anyway. If I'm good enough at my job, I'm going to get drafted or I'm going to get picked up as a free agent, and I'm going to get paid regardless. Now, you have the positions where you have a receiver that, just goes crazy one year, like an Austin Hill year, right? Or you have a Nick Foles or whatever. I can't say that I was in one of those sexy positions anyway. So, the fact of the matter is I think that if you do your job well enough, you're still going to get compensated down the road. And to be honest with you, I really wouldn't worry about that. You might have some people thinking that way, but once again, if you're the face of the program versus somebody that's, a freshman, that isn't playing, I don't necessarily think that should be, one of the first thoughts in somebody's head.
We have about a minute left. I hope you stay around for another segment. But I bet if I had money that Jake Fisher misses playing.
Well, I miss the game. Practice and all the other stuff that goes along with it that just kills you throughout the week. I don't miss that. But as soon as, you run out in front of all the fans and stuff in the stadium and, you're on television and you're going against a guy that is going to be in the NFL and all these other different things, that's the feeling I miss. It's almost like the feeling I'm going into battle with all my brothers. I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that they're successful as well. That's the feeling that you miss when you leave.
So we just have a few more seconds in this segment. So when you're visiting and you go to the game, because I know you've done that a couple of times, how do you feel getting back on the field?
It's great. It's funny because the players always look smaller when you go back. And I don't know what it is. It was the same way as high school. It's the same way now. You always see a couple guys, you're like, well, that dude's probably going to go to the NFL. But, it's super weird. Number one, when I go back now, a completely different coaching staff. There really wasn't anybody left from when I graduated. So it's almost like a different program. But, just the fact that you can sit there, you can say, hey, I played for this university. It's a pretty cool feeling.
Right. Let's take a quick break here. Come back with Jake Fisher on the other side.
CBS News at the top and bottom of every hour. 1030 The Voice, Tucson's trusted local news and talk.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks hit the skids with coronavirus cases spiking in multiple states. The Dow Jones Industrial Average plunged 709. The S&P 500 sank 81. The Nasdaq dropped 222. Bayer will pay nearly $11 billion to settle 95,000 lawsuits, which claimed its Roundup weed killer causes cancer. The settlement covers about 75% of all claims. Bayer inherited Roundup in its acquisition of Monsanto. One of Wall Street told us data providers is going public. Dun & Bradstreet, which traces its origins to 1841, says it has data on over 360 million businesses. The initial public offering could give D&B a market value of $8.4 billion. As coronavirus cases surge, retailers in states from Arizona to Texas and Florida are seeing a drop in traffic. Some states that reopened the earliest are seeing thousands of new cases, and some businesses are closing again. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg.
CBS News Update. California, Florida, and Texas all reported record numbers of coronavirus infections today. Texas Governor Greg Abbott calls their outbreak massive, with more than 5,000 new infections and more than 4,000 hospitalized. While he's not reimposing stay-at-home orders, he says new measures may be needed.
There are other areas like bars, for example, that do need different modifications that may be required. And so we will look at what we are hearing from the people who are testing positive and respond accordingly.
Infections are also surging in Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis.
In Florida, it's hot, but sunshine, heat, and humidity is your friend. When you're in an enclosed space, particularly if you don't have social distancing, if it's like a private party or something like that, and you're cramped in with bad ventilation, you're going to have more spread.
Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey are telling visitors from high infection states they'll have to self-quarantine. CBS News Update, I'm Pam Coulter.
These days, most families are concerned with having the right insurance coverage. Protecting your family, home, auto, and other valuable possessions can be challenging and sometimes expensive. Crest Insurance gives you flexible options and solutions while saving you money. Insurance is not one size fits all, and at Crest, we find the coverage that's best for you and your family. Visit us online at www.crestins.com or call us toll free at 888-881-5765.
It's your town. Get up and get involved.
Hey, it's Chris from Wake Up Tucson. Every morning we're talking local, state, and national politics with guests from Tucson to Phoenix to D.C. We're the show 9 out of 10 elected officials hope you don't listen to. We've also got you covered with Tucson culture, cuisine, and entertainment. And if it's happening in pop culture, we'll talk about it too.
Wake Up Tucson. Weekday mornings, 6 to 9 on 1030 The Voice. Trusted local news and talk.
This is The Voice, 1030, Tucson's trusted news and talk.
Hey, welcome back to Eye on the Ball here on 1030 The Voice. I'm Steve Rivera alongside Jay Gonzales. And on the phone, we have former linebacker Jake Fisher from the U of A. Jake, just real quick, I don't know if you saw that Nick Gonzales signed for $5.4 million out of Cienega. He was the number 7 guy in the MLB. He reminds me of you in a sense that I thought a few people just thought you would make it at U of A. You did very well. You and Jared Tevis and some of those guys, new bootstrap guys, just guys who just kind of prove people wrong.
Yeah, and the only difference is that man got paid. No, it's cool because, you see a local product do super well, and, he went to I wish he would have went to the U of A. I don't know if they recruited him out of.
He walked on at New Mexico State. He walked on at New Mexico State because nobody would take him.
That's just crazy, But the thing is, with the type of work ethic that he had, he probably knew when he got there that he's going to prove everybody wrong, and he's going to make it into the big leagues. And I wish him the best of luck. I hope that we see him playing here, often, and I hope he has a very good career.
One more question along those lines. You got to U of A, and we saw you play in high school, do well really there. Did Jake Fisher become Jake Fisher later because he worked his butt off, or the coaches, did they coach you up? How did you become that guy?
Well, number one, coaches, they're not gonna really coach you hard unless they see that you actually want to win. It's one of those things to where if you have a coach yelling at you all the time, even though a young player is going to sit here and say, woe is me, why does the coach always yell at me? In the back of your mind, the older you get, you start seeing people that they kind of lose trust and faith in, and they just don't talk to them. They don't even correct them on the field sometimes. So it's coaching, but it's hard work. Growing up, my dad was my coach, and so I got my butt kicked every day, and he coached me up hard. And then as soon as I got into ball after he was my coach, it was easy. I kind of had it built into my head to just continue to work hard and things of that nature. And it's really just because of the environment I grew up in. My parents did a fantastic job and always telling me I needed to work my tail off. And, my dad always instilled grades and everything in me as well. And so, I really think that kind of set me up for the future as well as opposed to just football.
So Jake, as I was getting ready to, for the show today, I was running through the game results from the time that you were here, and your time got split, between Mike Stoops and kind of when things went a little south with him and he got fired, and then Rich Rod coming in and the excitement of all that, and how immediately there was a lot of excitement around the program and stuff like that. So talk a little bit about just your progression through the program and how you, Jake Fisher, experienced that and the things that you went through as a player, going through, you guys got a couple of bowl games and things went south with Stoops, and then all of a sudden Rich Rod comes in and it's a whole different deal. What was the experience there?
Well, I think if you take it back even before I got to the university, the way that the Stoops regime really built it back up from the ground up by, plugging immediate holes, but also bringing in players that, they would compete with a lot of really good colleges to get some of these players to campus. I mean, when you have guys like Rob Gronkowski, Earl Mitchell, Rob Goldens, those type of guys, Trevin Wades, when you have guys like that, it's like, what you're doing. So they kind of brought it back from, really being one of the worst teams in the entire country for a little bit of time. And then, towards the end of my sophomore year, we had a 5-game skid where 3 of those 5 games we should have won, and we could have gotten to a bigger bowl game, and then we kind of laid an egg in the Alamo Bowl. And then the next season we lost so many great players. Not only that, but we had so many people get injured, and I was one of like 10 people that got injured before the damn season even started. And we had a lot of young guys trying to plug holes, and when you're trying to play a lot of young guys, you might have them play really well for a couple different plays, but having so many young people trying to get on the same page that don't have that kind of experience, you're not going to have a very successful season. So, after the Oregon State game, we get on the plane, and there was just this feeling kind of around the team, and then it happened. And, we all love Stoops. He gave us the opportunity to play at the university. And, throughout that time when Coach Kish was the head coach, and we started out with a bang, we beat UCLA, and then we went on a skid again, and then we got a chance to beat ASU. I just remember during that time, I'm sitting here and I'm basically every single day working with a couple other guys trying to get back on the field, and we're rehabbing. And next thing you know, all of a sudden, they say Coach Rich Rodriguez is our new football coach. Well, all of us reverted back to like, well, you remember when he was at West Virginia, how great those teams were. And then, we got the chance to play under some of the coaches that were with them. And it was just fantastic because it's like, you're not going to have a team go from the way that they were to getting to a Fiesta Bowl without a lot of hard work in between. And it just so happened that we needed 2 coaching staffs to get there. But, I hate because I talk to people regularly about it, and, Stoops doesn't get enough recognition. I mean, he brought it back from where it was dead, and then Coach Rodriguez and those guys, they were wonderful coaches. I mean, they got all the way to the Fiesta Bowl, could have beat Boise State there towards the end of the game. One bounce one way, we could have won that game. So it was really great. Both coaching staffs were fantastic at coaching, great at recruiting, things of that nature. And, I enjoyed time with both staffs.
We talked about that not too long ago, where we thought Stoops too did not get or does not get enough recognition because he recruited, like you say, some very good talent. Plus, he had a lot of scrappers like you guys.
Yeah, well, and it comes to a point where you're not walking around with an SC on your jacket, or you're in a fertile recruiting ground like LA, and so you might be able to, be a decent coaching staff, but not a great coaching staff. And you have all of the things that you need to have a successful program right in your backyard. Whereas these guys, they started out by recruiting, number one, the state of Texas they did great with. They did great with California, Arizona. They would go other places to get some folks to play. But, but they also did it through the JUCO rankings. And then, they went out and they sold the fact that they're going to build the program up to what it became eventually, with landing guys that were, U.S. Army All-American guys, like a Rob Golden or an Adam Hall back in the day. And, it was just really nice because they had a great blend of people that, number one, they would get along with each other. Number two, they might not be, a rival's top 100 guy, but, they're a fringe 500 or 600, top 600 guy. And, they just outwork everybody. And that's really they built it from the ground up. They didn't really do any shortcuts. And that's really why I think he doesn't get as much, he doesn't get the recognition he deserves at all.
Okay, Jake, two games. You just tell me which one you think you when you think back on your time here, 2 games that stand out to me that tell me where they sit for you. The USC game in 2012 when you guys were getting your skulls crushed and beat USC here with Matt Scott as your quarterback, and then the next year beating Oregon here at a game that nobody wanted to come to because it was freezing cold. Everybody thought you guys were going to get killed, and then you guys crushed their skulls. Which of those 2 games stands out more for you?
Well, this is the thing about the USC game. I'm running around with a torn shoulder. That wasn't very fun for me at all. And the fact that they had, 3 guys that are in the NFL on their offensive line that I had to try to deal with on a consistent basis. I mean, it was hot. I mean, it's like you have a decent game, but at the same time, you're kind of limited on what the heck you can do. Of those 2 games, my favorite game was the Oregon game. It's funny because we went out and everything that could go right went right. And it comes down to like the little plays that you go back and watch and that you say those are the types of plays why we won the game. When they scored their first touchdown, they try to do a fake extra point and go for 2. And we had gone over that in practice. We had a great week of practice, by the way. We went over that 3, 4, 5 times in practice, and everybody ran it to perfection. We got him before he got to the goal line, and Shaq came up with that interception to steal the game. But he also started the game with a bang too. He had that crazy interception where he was falling out of bounds, and he did kind of like a finger roll back into Scooby, and Scooby kind of caught it like, what the hell just happened? And then he just started running, trying to run over and truck everybody. And then you have guys like Kadeem Carey that just had one of those games where it's like, hey guys, get on my back. I'm gonna win us this thing. And it's just crazy because the week before that, we had a crushing defeat at home with Washington State,
right,
where it seems like we just kept shooting ourselves in the foot, and defense actually played very well, and when we got to the Oregon game, we had a complete game where all three phases of the game, with the exception of the opening kickoff, we played extremely well in.
So you're a local kid, done well here. Are you surprised or disappointed, whatever word you want to use? A lot of the locals are leaving.
I mean, this is the thing, and I know that they're going through a coaching transition. I mean, you're not going to get every single team, and you got to remember, in a place like Tucson where there's only a few Division I athletes, if you have a generational, player like a Bijan Robinson, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name the right way. I mean, that kid his sophomore year, he might start at any college in the damn country, and he's got NFL written all over him. So you have, I know he went to Texas, but you have teams like SC coming in, and you have teams like Oregon, Ohio State, Alabama, whoever the heck came in and offered him. But it's hard. And the thing is, if you're not born and raised and you're not a diehard Arizona fan growing up, that might be tempting to do. When I was looking at my college choices, one of the big schools that didn't offer me but intrigued me just as much, if not more, in the very beginning as Arizona was Nebraska, because my whole family was from there. My parents moved down here, and then a year later I was born, and I was basically raised in a Go Big Red household. And when I was younger, Arizona, for the most part, went, from what I remember in the early 2000s and stuff like that, they really weren't that good. I mean, they had those magical years, where they went to the Fiesta Bowl and things of that nature, and they beat the hell out of Miami and whatever. And but you got to remember, when you're making a college decision too, you want to look at the coaching staff. If you haven't built a really great relationship with them, it's tough, and especially if you're coming from behind. The thing is, if you have a head coach come in and he's got a couple of good years under his belt, and you see that the program is changing, like when I was, a sophomore, junior, and senior in high school, it's much easier to stay home. And you never know exactly what into it, because we weren't sitting across the kitchen table from the coaches when they were making their pitch. But I mean, I really would like to see some of the local products, because it's not Phoenix where you have 40 to 50 Division I guys that can all start, their sophomore year on. I really would like to see us be able to get the vast majority of them to stay home.
Yeah. Just real quick, we got to go in a couple minutes. You're up north in Tempe. I think you're in Tempe, or maybe in Phoenix. How is it living up there with the other color and the other guys?
Well, the funny thing, and my girlfriend and I, we always talk about this, but as soon as I started coming up here, I started wearing U of A gear out everywhere we would go, whether it's going out to get a drink, going out to eat, going to the office that we're out of up here now, wearing a U of A polo. No one says anything. There's really not as much school pride up here as there in Tucson. I walked into a bar on campus with a U of A polo shirt on. No one said anything. There was actually somebody else there that came up and they were like, "Hey, bear down." They bought us, dinner, stuff like that. It was fantastic, but no one said a word. Whereas if you're wearing an ASU shirt, you go down on University or whatever, someone's going to say something to you, and, it's just going to go like that. But there's really not as much school pride up here, and I always say that Tempe's a great place. It's just I don't really like the university down the street. But other than that, the people are great. I'm enjoying my time up here.
Are you telling us they've gone soft up there, Jake?
They've always been soft.
Eddie needs clients.
And on that note,
Jake, it's always great to talk to you. I miss you, the sports guys. If I had money, I'll give you some money for your old project there, your work project.
No problem, guys. Thank you,
Jake. Thanks for joining us today. It's been fun.
Yeah, thanks,
absolutely.
Jake.
Thank you, guys.
Let's take a quick break here at 10:30 The Voice.
We're Tucson's station for local news and talk. 1030 The Voice.
For nearly 7 decades, Hughes Federal Credit Union has been there for its members through good times and bad. We know that by working together, we can achieve great things, like addressing your financial needs during these times and beyond. Bank locally with Hughes, selected by Forbes as one of the best in-state credit unions for 2 years in a row. We've got you today, tomorrow, and for decades to come. Visit hughesfcu.org, insured by NCUA.
There's a place in our house.
For 70 years, Benjamin Supply has been keeping Tucson flowing. Hygiene is our business. We help you achieve extreme clean. Minimize germ spreading with a hands-free sensor faucet. Forget the paper panic with a washlet seat. And speaking of waterworks, a big thanks to plumbers for their essential efforts during this health crisis. Shop our downtown showroom by appointment. Call us at 777-7000 or see all the products online at benjaminsupply.com.
Thanks to Benjamin Plumbing Supply.
It's a great way to start your day. Hi, it's Hugh Hewitt. Join me weekday mornings for the Hugh Hewitt Show, 10 to noon weekdays on 1030 The Voice. I'll have the news you must have, the analysis you need, great interviews with today's top newsmakers, and we'll toss in a great, healthy dose of good humor and compelling conversation to get you going. Let's start the day together with the Hugh Hewitt Show.
News from inside the Beltway. The Hugh Hewitt Show. Weekday mornings from 10 to noon on 1030 The Voice. Trusted local news and talk.
Tucson's source for trusted news and talk. 1030 The Voice.
Hey, welcome back to Eye on the Ball here on 1030 The Voice. I'm Steve Rivera alongside Jay Gonzales, and welcome to Hula Hands on the east side.
Or for those of you who are even a little older, Doolies over by the U of A.
Love the Get Bad. nice tune there, Thomas.
Loving you, Tom. Loving you.
Hey, what do you miss the most? No baseball, because that's not fair.
Okay.
I know it's going to be. What do you miss the most about sports not being around?
Just sitting around on a weeknight and being able to turn on the TV and find a sport that's on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a sports watcher, and I'll watch just about anything. And like I was saying, when all this stuff is going on, I was watching horse races because there was nothing else nothing else live to watch.
Mm-hmm.
So I miss being able, sitting there, and I'm a channel surfer, big time channel surfer, drive my wife nuts. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm a channel, and actually my daughter too, but I'm a channel surfer, and I'll sit there and I'll just flip through the channels, get to the end, and go back to the top. Right. And go through it again, thinking like, did I miss something?
Right.
But not being able to see a sporting event, and just watch it, even if I'm just passing by and watching it for a few minutes.
Please don't tell me you're falling for cornhole.
I have.
Oh, what about spike ball?
I've seen cornhole. I've seen spike ball. I've watched the axe throwing championships.
Oh, axe throwing. Yeah.
I've watched darts. This
is the beginning of. You remember ESPN 40 years ago?
Right.
That was all that 40 years ago.
I've watched bowling. Now, I'm going to say bowling. I used to. I mean, as a little kid, I watched it on Saturday afternoons.
Is that back?
Yep.
Is that back? I thought
The interesting thing about bowling, and maybe this is too much information, right, is that they don't do bowling tournaments in bowling alleys anymore. They've got the ability to build a two-lane bowling alley and put it in a ballroom somewhere, and that's where they hold their bowling tournaments now. And the other thing that I found funny is that a lot of these professional bowlers don't put their thumb in the thumb hole, and I don't know what that is.
Right. They don't put. Yeah, they spin it. However.
Right. Again, too much information for everybody. Right. But again, back to the thing. I just miss being able to pass by and see that there's a baseball game on and watch it for a few minutes.
No, I think everybody feels that way. Tom, what do you miss the most?
I honestly miss a lot of the conversations that revolve around sports. Not that, my friends and I don't have other things to talk about, but I just feel like a lot of the times when you could say, oh, man, did you see this last night? And it just leads you down a bunch of different paths. Yeah. And, it's that shared experience, because now there's not that one communal shared experience. It's everybody giving you the vignettes of their life. And so you react to that and you go, oh, okay. But we all don't have that one thing where we're like, man, did you see that game last night?
Well, this show is kind of like that once it starts again. But I think the power of this show is the guests like Jake, the guests like we've had in the past, because we reminisce and then we get their thoughts about what's going on.
Sure, and I like getting a perspective like from Jake. And I know some of the guests we've had have been, guys who played here in the 80s and whatnot, and maybe it's for the older crowd. But, somebody like Jake Fisher, who's a young guy, played, not that long ago. Yeah. and he still has an understanding of what they're going through in athletics. I mean, he had a lot of great insight into the name, image, likeness thing,
Right.
and getting athletes paid. That's why I wanted to see, what was his perspective in terms of, how do some of these players struggle financially when they're here, and bringing the millions of dollars into a program, and what can be done about that.
So where do you sit with that?
Well, I go back and forth. I mean, I think the whole name, image, likeness thing isn't the all-encompassing answer.
Right, it's not the quick
because,
fix, right.
like you said, there's going to be that offensive guard who's from maybe a poor family. He's far from home. He's getting his education and he's getting a little stipend to pay for groceries and whatnot, but it's not enough. And he doesn't have a family that can send him money or whatever. And there are those guys. And there's a lot of them. Not everybody is like a Jake Fisher whose parents are here, and if he needs a meal, he can go home and have a meal. Or his parent, as he said, his parents can make his car payment. So I don't understand why we don't have the ability to just give them a little more money from the pot, as part of their scholarship. I'm not sure if there's a rule because of that, but, a football player who has to commit all this time in the summer when maybe he could have gone to work somewhere,
right,
and he can't make money, and then he comes to school and he can't have a job, why can't we give them a little more?
Right. So I think the one thing that we'll see is coaches' salaries are going to be, under the conditions that we're in with the pandemic, are going to be lowered. There's not going to be a lot of money anymore. So maybe they take it from that pot.
Right. It's going to have to be, somebody is going to have to step out and make a big hire and just say, we're not going to give you $7 million a year. We're going to give you $3 million, and that should be enough. And to kind of reset the market. It's hard to do. And,
well, look,
a lot of times, athletic directors and school presidents don't have the
power.
They have the power. What they don't have is the gumption, for lack of a better word. I want to say something, different, but
stones.
yes, cojones.
To say that's all you're getting,
right?
Because we've got to give it to these guys.
Well, they're going to tell you, then I'm not going.
Then I'm not coming because I can go get that somewhere else.
Right.
But it has to be that if they can't go get that somewhere else, then they'll have to.
But everybody's in the same boat, which is a good deal.
Yeah.
Because now Alabama is Alabama, but you have Arizona's all with other schools in the same boat with there's not a whole lot of money.
Right. If there could be if one of the silver linings to what we're going through could be a resetting of that, so that some of that money gets channeled into a better place for the athletes or whoever it is. And it may, if you've got to spread it out amongst everybody, then do that. But I think too much. I mean, the coaches' salaries are crazy. And
that's where it begins.
That's sort of a first place. Or for a coach to say, you know what, I'll come here if I know that money is going to go there and help out the players. I'll do that.
Right. It's easy to spend other people's money, though. That's what we're doing.
And that's really what we're doing.
Tom?
Well, here's the other thing to consider, guys, is that, you'd like to say, okay, Nick Saban, we're going to cut your salary in half and take that and give it to the football program. But if there's less money all the way around, you cut that salary, and it's because you needed to, because that money's not there anymore.
Right.
So you're not spending it back on the program. You're just trying to get back to your new average of normal.
Right. And we won't get to a real normal for a while.
Right. It's going to be like that for a while. I mean, they're going to have to make some cuts in those areas, and it's going to be interesting to see how the coaches take it. And again, I'm just, if you're making $3 million, why do you need to make $5 million?
Right. Well, it's funny. It's funny because obviously I don't make that. Don't even come close to that. A percentage of it, and you're thinking, how much is too much? I mean, you're trying to save it for your family and whatever you do, but maybe because I've never been.
I'm willing to try to find out how much is too much.
Give me the struggle.
Give me the 3 and let me see if I can make it.
Let me try.
Right. Well, look, you have the Nick Gonzales 5.4. He's 22, whatever. Yeah. What do? You put that baby away?
Yeah, but somebody like Nick Gonzales could get have a career-ending injury. First week of practice, and he's set. Hopefully he's set for life just with that first contract.
Yeah.
But then if he makes it, long term, now he's setting his. But again, I'm just not understanding why. Alex Rodriguez had to make $250 million.
No, I get it. And Trout and all
he
these
made
guys.
it because he could, and
Sure.
you give him all the credit in the world for doing that. I'm just not sure why that has to be. But again,
totally agree.
I guess they'll call me a socialist over that. But
I totally agree.
I'm just,
Jay, you're not going to make $250 million. Now, can you settle for $125?
Yeah, exactly. And then he's off with J-Lo and between the two of them. It's like,
damn it, he has everything.
It's like Tom Brady is the one with the low paycheck in the household, right?
Right. It's another thing I'm missing.
He's the one that's keeping the family income down.
Right. It's a tough time.
It is, but again, I think having that kind of perspective from somebody like Jake, I think, is good, and that's we want to keep doing that here. So hopefully we can. So it's he was great. I've gotten a bunch of text messages right now that he's he was a great guest for us, and that those are the kinds of guests we need to keep having.
Right, no question. He was one of the original sports guys, and I thought, actually, I made him a bet out of college. Just think, if you're not part of the media in the next year or so, I made a little bet. We didn't actually fulfill it, but he's that good. Speaks well, very insightful.
Yeah, smart guy.
Yeah,
smart guy. But I knew that. I knew him when he was in high school. He's the friend of a close family friend of mine, and so Jake, you knew that he was going to be successful, and he has been, and he was a hard worker. I mean, I saw him in high school and the things that he was going through to make himself a really good football player.
We might have to get Jared Tevis on this thing. He's kind of the same.
Some of those guys. I'd love to hear from some of those guys that were in that period of time.
Right. Let's take a break or not take a break. We'll take the rest of the night off. Tomorrow is today's Wednesday, right?
Today is Wednesday, hump day, so we're going to Thursday now.
Yeah. Good show today.
Good show. Thank you, Jake Fisher, for being with us.
Yes, thanks everybody. Here, good tunes there, Thomas. We'll see you tomorrow here on 1030 The Voice.
KVOI Cortero, AM 1030, the voice of Tucson. Trusted local news and talk. A Bustos media station.